and gentlemen, we are very pleased to have you in this wonderful place. And our speaker, Dr. Szafrański, the head of the Polish-Egyptian mission working in Karnak, will talk about the highlight of the recent work, result of the Polish-Egyptian archaeological and conservation mission of the temple of Hatshepsut, Deir el-Bahari. Everybody knows this Dr. Szafrański. He is the head of the Polish mission. Dr. Szafrański, please.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, I am glad you come here to see something from the temple of the very famous Queen Hatshepsut. Sometimes I will say the Queen, and the Queen means Queen Hatshepsut, not British Empire. And so in our temple and in our society, the Queen means only Hatshepsut. So it's my turn. Yeah, and Ibrahim, thank you very much for your great work organizing all these lectures. And it is as usual, Ibrahim Suleiman is #1 in the society, and we have opportunity to tell you about our work in this famous place in Thebes. No, this is not, yeah. So the Temple of Hatshepsut is well known. Just to remind you, the really exceptional building in the history of Egyptian civilization and in the world civilization. The temple is on the UNESCO heritage list, and the temple is really quite different building because of Hatshepsut, because she was really an exceptional person, and she decided to build this type of temple, and we'll see and we'll hear about her ideas from different fields, political, religious, psychological, and we read what she wanted to tell us from the walls of the temple. The upper terrace of the temple, it is our restoration. In 1961, our master, Professor Kazimierz Michałowski, was invited by the Egyptian government to come and to continue restoration of the temple. And we started our work after our prominent colleagues and missions, so British mission of the Egypt Exploration Fund under Edward Neville direction, and then American mission from the Metropolitan Museum of Art under Herbert Winlock direction. And we are in the upper terrace, restored by our mission, and in front of the main sanctuary of Amun-Re. This is last ceremony which happened in December 2017, when we made official opening of the sanctuary for you, for the public and for the colleagues. We'll talk about it later, about the opening. In front of the main sanctuary, we have a figure of Hatshepsut. The name is different now, Thutmose III, who decided to destroy her name, her memory. Instead of her names, he put his own names. On both sides, we see figure of daughter of Hatshepsut, Prince Neferu, who is in front of the temple, because Hatshepsut wanted to tell the world that her daughter Neferre will be king of Egypt. So again, a woman on the throne of Egypt. Unfortunately, Neferre disappeared in the 11th year of her reign, I mean reign of Queen Hatshepsut. She disappeared from the pages of history of Egypt, and Hatshepsut decided to change her figure and her name into name of her mother, Yahmes. And the new name is visible, but we still see traces of the former representation, former figure of Neferre. Even we feel under our fingers old hieroglyphs. So please touch, and you'll see that the name of Neferre existed before the name of Ahmose. This is announcement of the official opening with Minister Dr. Ineni and our ambassador and governor of Egypt. We'll come back to this. But during the conservation and during study on the main sanctuary of Amun, we did some, let's say, elements of this research. As you see here, we have a granite gate, granite entrance to the main sanctuary, and you see the places of joints of granite elements of the gate. You see wooden elements which were inside these holes, and in the temple of Hatshepsut we have many examples of this type of building activity. And at the same time we did a good study of threshold, and as you see here we have sockets of a door, and the main threshold now covered with wooden platform, protected because, as I said, we opened the sanctuary for the people, and at the same time we decided to protect original entrance, original element of the gate. And if you see it now on this photograph, it's not possible to see it in situ because it's covered with wooden construction. Study of the main sanctuary, it is also very important for knowledge about Amun-Re, about ceremony of his travel from the other side of the river, from Karnak, to the temples on this side, in West Thebes. And you see the bark of Amun with the chapel in the middle. This is drawing with some elements reconstructed by our mission, and you'll see later that everything was dark, was covered with black soot, and it's a, let's say, great achievement of Polish conservators. Marysia Lulkiewicz is among us, who is the person who did nice work bringing back colors of this bark. And the bark, as you see, was destroyed in time of Akhenaten and restored by the last king of the 18th dynasty, by Horemheb. And his name is visible here. He left his name, as well as his name is on the top of the chapel, which stood on the bark, and it is a cryptographic name, Horemheb, visible here. And thanks to restoration and conservation work, we see details of the bark decoration with gods, Mat and Hathor. And again, here is the name of the person who acted in the name of King Horemheb. So it was in the bark hall. This is the first chamber of the sanctuary. The second chamber, the so-called room of statue, where we what was inside this chamber is visible on the sides, on the walls, on both sides of the main entrance. So it was a figure of god Amun, as you see here, destroyed and restored. So we see condition of the representation after restoration. And on one side, on southern side, we have figure of Hatshepsut in front of god Amun. On the other side, a figure of Thutmose III in front of Amun in the ceremony of purification. And in the bark hall, we have several places, several scenes, showing that Hatshepsut respected Thutmose III as a king of Egypt. You know the story. Her husband died, perhaps after 7 years of his reign. And he left a young boy who was his son, and his mother was not from the royal family, but anyway, his small son, maybe 6, 7 years old, Thutmose, we gave him number 3, so Thutmose III became king of Egypt, let's say immediately. And Hatshepsut should be the person who should help him. But it was not Hatshepsut who would think about helping. At the beginning, as we see from the walls, she decided to be king of Egypt. And in the second year of his reign, official his reign, she decided to be king of Egypt. I said in the second year, not 7th year as it is in literature, but we have enough facts supporting this hypothesis, of course, that it happened just in the beginning of their, let's say, co-regency. I mean, Thutmose III, small boy, and Hatshepsut, very ambitious, very intelligent, very an exceptional person who decided to be king of Egypt. And we had, from the beginning, from the start, 2 kings of Egypt. In scenes, many scenes in the temple, Hatshepsut respected Thutmose III. And here in the bark hall, we see a sitting figure of Amun, destroyed and restored. To the right, we have King Thutmose III, and to the left, we have figure of Hatshepsut, destroyed by Thutmose III, but still visible. You see, she is kneeling. Here, she is kneeling in front of god Amun, but her figure, the shape of her figure is still visible. It was, the destruction was made with chisel, very accurate, but for us, we are lucky to have this, let's say, accurate work, because her figure is still visible. And after conservation, after cleaning, Hatshepsut came back to her temple. Her figure is still visible, and she is still, or again, present in her temple. Hatshepsut herself, her portrait, and she depicted in the second chamber, in the statue room. You see how it was before the conservation. We left this rectangular area to show how it was before and how it looks after the conservation work. You see that the colors are not accurate, but here, for example, you see this red color. Hatshepsut, when she decided to be king of Egypt, and then, of course, she decided to repaint her necked parts of her body. Before she was, let's say, pinkish red, and here, according to Marisha, to our conservator, there are 2 layers of red on her body. So you see her body was repainted. You know that in Egyptian canons of art, necked parts of a woman is painted yellow. Necked parts of a man is painted red. So when she decided to be king, not queen, king of Egypt, to be a man, so she ordered to repaint her body in several places in the temple. Yeah, in the second room, I'd like to show you the state of this small chapel located in the southern wall of the statue room. How it was before conservation and after conservation. And inside this small chapel, there was a shaft with burial chamber. When, after the great disaster, catastrophe, very strong earthquake, the temple in el-Bahari, temples on this side of the rivers of Ramesseum, Seti I, Ramesses III in Medinet Habu, and on the other side, in Luxor and Karnak, collapsed. And the temple of Hatshepsut was in ruin, but still very famous, very important, so important that members of royal families of the 23rd and 25th dynasty, they decided to be buried there. And this is one of tombs now covered of this third intermediate period necropolis. Important scene in the first chamber, in the bark room. Under here is Amun bark, and the scene, we call it Sematawi. So we see 2 personalities of lower and upper Egypt restored. We see original fragments, and the restoration was executed in high relief, not as it is, for example, in Luxor, where American mission made restoration with brown paint. I mean, lines are painted brown, or in Elephantine, where we have restoration in black lines. We decided to make it in high relief. But as you see, not many features are here indicated. So we didn't want to go too far with our restoration, just, let's say, outlines of the figures. The scene is 100% true. Egyptologists looking on these islands of information, he or she, Egyptologist, see it is Sematawi scene of unification of Upper and Lower Egypt. But let's say normal people, they do not see. So this is a reason why we decided to make it in relief, in high relief. And you see how it was at the beginning. And then we found this piece of face found by one of our students. She just walked down in lapidarium, kicked the stone rolled. She looked at it and brought it up, and we put it in a right position. The other face is in private collection in New York, United States, but we still expect that we will be able to find more pieces and put them into this scene, into this representation. Documentation means also restoration or some kind of idea of the destroyed figures. You see a scene where father of Hatshepsut, Thutmose I, is represented, her mother, Ahmose, Yahmes, and her sister, Neferubiti. And this is restoration of the figure of Neferubiti, of the sister of Hatshepsut, who died when she was a child. In the main sanctuary, we have windows. One in the Bark Hall, the other in the room of statue. It was intention, idea of Hatshepsut to bring light on a special day twice a year. We see that she decided to make this window when the decoration was completed. So she moved the decoration. You see this Bahdati symbol, destroyed by the window, and then moved lower, above the scene we spoke about. And after astronomical calculations, we know that at the end of January, so it is perhaps 28th of January, till the beginning of February, 6, maybe till 6th of February, the sunlight the sun rises were direct on the face of the statue, which stood here or here. It stood perhaps in the, not existed, dismantled by Ptolemaeus II, when he created the sanctuary for Imhotep and Amenhotep, son of Hapu. We do not have the statues. So this is why I'm saying that it was between 28th of January and 6th of February, because we don't know where the statue stood, here or here, how high the statue was. So it is this period of time where the sunlight was on the face of the statue. Statue of Amun, for sure. However, it is emotional attitude. I would like to have their Hatshepsut, of course. But it's not true, and I'm not going to repeat it and to write, because my colleagues could eat me, you know. I have no proof for that. And we preserved also the structure above the main sanctuary of Amun. This is this artificial construction made above the limestone slabs. Below we have Bark Hall, and it's still possible to visit us to see the structure, limestone structure itself, and many interesting graffiti and marks made by the builders of this temple. We have to, I have to come back again to the big ceremony in December, where Minister of Antiquities, our ambassador, my director, Tomek Waliszewski, governor of Luxor, and 17 different TV stations came to document this official opening, but the scene you see here after the opening was possible because of our master, Professor Kazimierz Michałowski. You see him with his wife in 17th during the time of restoration of the temple. My predecessor, engineer Zygmunt Wysocki, Franek Pawlicki, who is in charge of the monographic publication of the sanctuary. And the sanctuary is open for tourists. I'm very afraid of their activity inside, but till now it's okay. And so, yeah, our very important and very important and the project of 3D documentation of the temple. So on the documentation we made before on the plastic folia in scale 1:1, now it's forbidden. So you see the girls and they made hundreds and hundreds of photographs. And then the photographs in the computer are combined together, and then with Corel and Corel something. Yaga, who is in charge of the project, knows only the proper name of this Corel program. We produce electronic documentation of the temple. And there are different projects connected or involved in this project, 3D documentation of the temple. For example, one of the walls of the upper courtyard, the so-called festival courtyard, because many festivals are presented on the walls of this courtyard, and the western wall with the niches on both sides of the main sanctuary. So you see big niches and small niches. On both sides of the big niches, we have very important text saying that the temple was the temple of millions of years. And it is under documentation and study. So big niche with figures of Hatshepsut, one of them restored, and text saying that the temple of Amun in Djeser is a name of the temple in Egyptian, was constructed by Hatshepsut, and even if the name of Hatshepsut is destroyed and replaced with the name of her husband, Thutmose II, and father of Thutmose III. So we see, we are able to read the name of Hatshepsut. So Hatshepsut constructed the temple of Amun, temple of millions of years. It is very popular now to call the temples on this side of the river temples of millions of years. But of course, each temple had many functions. It is also mortuary temple, temple of royal car, temple of king, temple of gods. But this text says that it was also temple of millions of years. Another part of the temple which is open for the public, restored by us, it is the complex of the royal cult. And as you see, restored two elements of this complex. Here we have vestibule, and this is the place where sun was worshipped and visible, and Hatshepsut is represented as a priestess of hours, of night hours. So sun in the night, covered, closed, dark. And then you cross the door, and you are in a courtyard with sun altar. The walls are not decorated, smooth. The walls collect light like mirror, and in the middle we have a sun altar. We left here a place. Please visit us, and you see there are two altars, smaller and then inside this bigger altar. And there is the third stage of the construction of the altar, visible here in our restoration. At the beginning, Hatshepsut wanted to have three niches, 1, 2, and third here. We have fragments of this niche. Then she changed her mind, and she decided to build a small chapel for Anubis. And we have still fragments of this niche, and we know that the niche was devoted to her mother, to Ahmose. And we have fragments with not finished relief decoration. So they stopped the decoration of this niche, which existed somewhere here, because Hatshepsut wanted to have a special chapel for Anubis. So sun cult and Anubis, which is connected, Anubis, God Anubis is connected with afterlife, with mummification. So one of aspects of this temple. And after 3D documentation, many, not so many, 6, 7, 8 years ago it was. So we have result of documentation of this sanctuary. Here is a main chamber, and here we have, so main chamber looks like that. To the left, to the west, is this niche, and you see both sides of this niche, and this wall is visible up to the rear wall, and the other wall is here, and the end of this wall is on the other side. So as you see, electronics, computer is able to do such a strange document of the niche. We'll come back to this representation. What I want to point out, you see, in the first chamber of the upper shrine of Anubis, we have here, we have frieze with the cryptographic name of Hatshepsut. So Hatshepsut wanted to have here her names. Instead of Mat, we have Cobra. So we should read Cobra as Mat, Mat, Ka, Re. When Tutmosis III decided to destroy her names, he decided to destroy only this element. And the cryptographic name of Hatshepsut didn't exist. And we had just the normal, neutral frieze of cobras with apotropaic signs as Sa, An, Jet, and Cobra with the sun disk between horns. And inside the niche is important. So it was perhaps the main idea of its construction. We call the niche, we call the sanctuary of Anubis Chapel of Parents, because inside the sanctuary, in this niche, you show it, I show it before, so we are in the niche on this photograph documentation made by Leica scan. On both sides, we have representation of king, Egyptian king, with his mother. So here, on this side, we have King Thutmose I with her mother, Senebi. Mother, not father. So Hatshepsut pointed out queens, women in royal family. It is an echo of the second intermediate period, the second part of the 17th dynasty, when queens played an important part in unification of Egypt. We know about Teti Sheri, for example, with her temple, tomb, and so in this niche and in this sanctuary, Hatshepsut wanted to show Thutmose I, king of Egypt, with his mother. Not visible because destroyed by Thutmose I, figure of Hatshepsut with her mother, Ahmose. You'll see it more clear in this photograph. You see the place where Hatshepsut was represented, and behind her, her mother. So King of Egypt, King Hatshepsut, King Thutmose I, with their mothers. So it is one more element of her idea to have Nefrure on the throne of Egypt. She prepared, created a path for her daughter to be king of Egypt. And now we are in the middle terrace. This corner is very interesting, very important. You remember, you know, that Herodot, a Greek historian, when he visited Egypt, and he visited this place, he said this temples and the whole place looks like Thebes in Boeotia, in Greece. And you see this part of the temple with columns, and you may have an impression, Jean Capart had this impression, this is a small Greek temple. Of course, we call, for example, this type of column proto-Doric columns. And the idea of column and hypostyle colonnades and so on came from Egypt to Greek architecture. The Temple of Hatshepsut is a good example, especially this temple and architecture of from the beginning of the 18th dynasty, of new style in Egyptian architecture. We may call it new Mediterranean style, and the idea was supported, or one of elements of this idea of new architecture came from Minoan culture, from Knossos, from Creta. It is a time when the second period of palaces is finished. Minoan Empire does not exist, but people, it happened because of big eruption, volcano eruption on the island Santorini, and 30 years later, very strong earthquake in Creta destroyed palaces, and the kingdom collapsed. But people, artists, for example, they went in different parts of the Eastern Mediterranean, and we see the results of this emigration from the island and from the islands, from the Minoan kingdom, in Tel Daba, in Awaris, where we have paintings from Minoan palaces. found in at least 2 places. But also we have remains of their presence of Minoan artists in Syro-Palestine and in southern part of Anatolia. So this is one of elements of this new idea of many columns. In the temple of Hatshepsut we have more than 280 columns and pillars. So the architecture is with columns and pillars is more light, not so heavy as it was in, for example, in Old Kingdom. And this part is important for us because of conservation and restoration work. You see, it is very close to the mountain, and something has happened. Minimal movement of the mountain, maybe 1-2 millimeters, and we have problems with with the hypostyle hall, which is located in front of the lower shrine of Anubis. And you see conservation work, fillings between the ceiling slabs are replaced, and new fillings are arranged between the ceiling slabs and architraves, and same above the hypostyle hall. On this level, we have to make a layer of very compact, very strong substance brought from Poland to make it waterproof and to reduce sun operation, because temperature was also the reason why we have this small movements. As I said, maybe 1, maybe 2 millimeters. But now we would like to protect it, to close. We started with this protection work, and one part above the hypostyle is ready. And on the other side of the middle terrace, we have Hathor shrine, which you see how it looks. This negative of the ramp which led to the shrine, Hathor shrine, and you see facade, and you see cracks, and so we started with conservation of, let's say, 80 years old reconstruction made by Barres, and perhaps also by Winlock and Natalie, or who was the author of this restoration? Barres, only Barres. Okay, and you see we made new fillings to protect, to conserve the facade of the sanctuary, Hathor shrine, and same these cracks which are under the sanctuary. I mean the wall which supports construction above the wall. We had a platform in front of the Hathor shrine, and this arrangement of the checking gypsum elements, and the restoration of the facade of the vestibule of the Hathor shrine, thanks to publication of Dr. Nathalie Beau. And you'll see the problem inside the chapel. This is one of the niches. You see the scratches. Wooden construction made by Winlock more than 100 years ago. So after examination. At the beginning, I didn't want to touch it. But when it appeared that the front wall, I mean facade, is 5 centimeters in the night direction, so it was really dangerous. So we had to stop the process and make consolidation. So we started very expensive but very important work. You see drawing, this is vestibule with 3 architraves. This one is broken, and you see ceiling slab with different scratches. So we decided to construct iron. Sorry? Iron, very strong. You'll see it. And yeah, drilling. We should consolidate architrave. So with this machine and drill 2 meters long, we drilled through the architrave 2 meters because we didn't know if we'll be able to go between the slabs or not. So it's better to have longer drill than shorter. And after that, you see screws. So we consolidate one of architraves with this iron screws. Here you see the drawing, how it was. So from both sides, the architrave is now protected. And above the vestibule, we constructed this iron construction. And you see it is above ceiling slabs. And each slab is joined to this construction with the screws. And it was possible, it is genius idea of Mietek Michewicz. It was possible to move each slab, let's say, 0.5 centimeters up. And we reduced the pressure of the slabs on the walls of the sanctuary, of the vestibule of it. And the whole shrine is saved now, was rescued, and inside we made conservation work, consolidation, so it is now protected for years and years. And you see the work, conservation work, blocks of the facade, and how it looks in drawings. So here we have this iron construction with screws located, placed inside each slab, each limestone slab. And then we decided to create this artificial roof. And in the places where we had niches, so it's lower, so we have 2 chambers, 2 lapidaria. And we use this space between the artificial roof and the pavement above the niches as a storage place, storage room, and the same studio for Egyptological work and conservation. And final result, as you see, facade of the Hathor shrine. This part visible is a bit back comparing with the real surface to show that is, let's say, preliminary restoration, and we still hope to have more fragments from the facade to restore. Sphinxes in the Hatshepsut was king of Egypt, and in 21st year of her reign, she disappeared. I use this term, disappeared. We don't know what happened. she died, she was murdered, or maybe Thutmose I sent her to a new harem, which he constructed in Fayum oasis. Anyway, her successor, this small young boy at the beginning, now after 20 years, he was not so small, and as we know very well, Thutmose I was first Napoleon of the world. He created first empire. Even our colleagues from Great Britain use this expression, Napoleon, first Napoleon of the world. So it was really a great king. And due to political reasons, he waited 20 years after her disappearance. And after 20 years, he decided to destroy her memory, to destroy her figures, to destroy her names. To destroy her figures, you see fragments of sphinxes in the form of Hatshepsut. Fortunately for us, archaeologists, Egyptologists, he collected all the pieces of destroyed sculptures in front of the temple in a big hall. So fortunately for us, because we have almost all the fragments together. Among them, there were fragments of destroyed sphinxes. Winlock found the pit and the fragments, and then they disappeared for almost 80 years. Nobody knew where are fragments of the sphinxes of Hatshepsut. And one day, Francesco Tiradriti, working in front of our house in tomb of Haorwa, said, and he cleaned room by room the tomb, he found wooden chests with fragments of sphinxes of Hatshepsut. So we are very grateful to, where is Italian mission? Yes, okay, thank you. And we collect them. We have 4,500 pieces, but as you see here, some of them are beautiful, like this head, but we have not so many heads. And we started with restoration of the sphinxes. You see preliminary study and restoration of one of the sphinxes, and one today is standing in front of the lower ramp. You see fragments on this bank, so this mastaba, waiting for restoration. And the idea is to restore the Sphinx Alley. The idea of Hatshepsut. Hatshepsut is the first king of Egypt who decided to create this type of alley. The idea was repeated by her followers. But it started, the beginning is in the temple of Hatshepsut. So we have one Sphinx, but you see we plan to have more. And same with statues. You see restored figures of Hatshepsut in the form of Osiris. It is upper terrace, coronation portico. Here we have axis. On one side we have Hatshepsut wearing white crown to the south, and on the other side we have Hatshepsut wearing two crowns, red and white, and even two fragments of uraei, typical attribute, typical royal attribute, we were able to find and restore. It seems that at the beginning Thutmose I decided to destroy her name, which is behind head, and thanks to careful work of our conservators, we are able to read names of Hatshepsut, and he destroyed ureus. And having no name and no ureus, we have just normal, ordinary figure of Osiris. We don't know why he decided after that he decided to destroy the whole figure. But the fragments found by Winlock we have now, and 9 of this figure in upper terrace in front of the coronation portico we restored, but we went down. You see the figure, colossal figure, at the edge of the lower portico, North Colossus, more than 8 meters high. This is restoration made by an American restorer and sculptor, but after examination of this restored figure, we see that this is not correct with its proportions. And same, the head here, it is head which belongs to the other Colossus, which stood to the left on the other side of the portico at the southern edge. And we found the head and restored the head, which should be here. So this is why we decided to dismantle the American reconstruction and do the restoration again, having new fragments, original fragments found by the mission, original fragments of the body of this colossal statue. Here you see study, and these parts painted here in this photo green are not original, and it is not according to the proportion. After this preliminary study, we decided to dismantle the reconstruction, almost 100 years old reconstruction. You see the head, which stood here, and we'll move it on the other side because it belongs to the southern Colossus. And after careful examination of Teresa, Dziedzic, and Mariusz, yes, you are here, oh, Mariusz. This is, after their examination, we have canon, I may say, of proportions, and new fragments found, new fragments which belong to the Colossus we are going to restore. And the problem is now, and it is under conservation, the condition of original fragments. You see how bad it is. So Dorota is not here. Our conservators, she made this injection of different chemicals, liquids, and so on, to have the stone strong. And after conservation treatment, the original fragments will go to the new body. I mean, body which will consist of old original elements and new stone fragments. And below you see the restoration made again by Mariusz of the facade of the temple with 2 restored colossal statues of Hatshepsut in the form of Osiris. And I told you about this necropolis from the 3rd intermediate period. We found many, it was robbed, but we still have many fragments, for example, of coffins and cartonnages, about more than 1,000. And we have 20 names of the owners of these coffins. 10 of them fit very well to genealogical trees of the 23rd and 25th dynasty. So we may date the stuff. We have, the reason is not known, also cones, inscribed cones of Mentuemhat and his 2 wives. So you know Mentuemhat, most visible, dominated element of Asasif. and far from the temple of Hatshepsut. But anyway, we have cones of his cones and cones of his wives in the third intermediate period necropolis in the upper terrace of the temple. And interesting ostraka with this architectural sketch of architect. And one of the tombs we decided to preserve, you see in the Hatshepsut chapel, 1, 2, 3 shafts of the tombs of the third intermediate period. Shaft and burial chamber. So one of them we decided to exhibit, I may say. You see the construction with glass on the top, with leather and light. So tourist has an impression standing on glass, looking down, how the tomb looked like. This tomb perhaps belongs to Vizier Padiamonet, a very important person of the 25th dynasty. He died in 27th year of Pian, or Pie. One of the persons, important persons. So it is one more element of our activity, and this is what we want to show visitors. And we are still on. The work is getting on. We have many different projects. Now, this season, this month, this season reduced because of the police permission. Okay. It came to so late. But we work, and you'll see more about the results of our activity. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Szafrański.